The bank was busy with people going about their day, customers waiting in line, tellers counting cash, and employees walking briskly to their desks. It was a regular afternoon, and nothing seemed out of the ordinary. That is, until Michael Turner walked in. Michael was a tall man with a confident presence. Dressed in a neat button-up shirt and slacks, he looked like any other professional. But there was something unique about him. He was a self-made millionaire. Michael had built his wealth by creating businesses that focused on giving back to the community. Today, he had come to the bank to finalize a major transaction for his newest project, a community center in an underserved neighborhood. As Michael approached the counter, he smiled at the young teller and placed his documents on the counter. "Good afternoon," he said warmly. "I'm here to process a wire transfer for my account." The teller began to assist him, but before she could get far, Linda Carter, the bank manager, stepped in. Linda was known for being strict and, at times, a bit dismissive. She walked over, her heels clicking loudly against the marble floor, and looked Michael up and down. "Can I help you?" she asked sharply, interrupting the teller. Michael turned to her and replied politely, "Thank you, but I think the teller has it under control." Linda's eyes narrowed. "What kind of transfer are you trying to make?" she asked, her tone skeptical. Michael explained, "I'm transferring funds for a project I'm working on. Here are my documents and account details." But Linda didn't even glance at the papers. Instead, she crossed her arms and said, "I'm sorry, but we've had a lot of fraud cases lately. I'll need to verify everything before proceeding. It might be better if you come back another day." Michael raised an eyebrow, still calm. "I've already provided all the necessary documents. Everything should be in order." Linda's voice grew colder. "Look, sir, I don't know who you think you are, but we can't just process large transactions for anyone who walks in off the street." The people nearby began to take notice. A few customers glanced over, sensing the tension. Michael, still composed, said, "I assure you, my account is in good standing, and the funds are mine." But Linda wouldn't budge. "You'll need to leave," she said firmly. "I don't have time for scammers today." A hush fell over the area as her words echoed. Michael straightened, his expression calm but serious. He leaned slightly forward and said quietly, "You're making a mistake." Linda smirked, waving him off. "I don't think so. Security, please escort him out." As Michael walked toward the door, he paused, looking back at Linda. "You'll regret this," he said, his tone steady. Then he left, leaving the onlookers stunned. Linda returned to her desk, convinced she had done her job. Little did she know, her actions were about to change everything. The next morning, Linda Carter arrived at the bank feeling satisfied with herself. To her, yesterday's incident was just another example of her being vigilant against fraud. As she settled into her office, she barely gave Michael Turner a second thought. Little did she know, her actions had set off a chain of events that would soon return to her doorstep. Meanwhile, Michael Turner sat in his sleek home office, sipping coffee and reviewing emails. He wasn't a man who believed in holding grudges, but he also wasn't one to let disrespect slide, especially when it affected others. Michael wasn't angry for himself. He was thinking about how many other people might have been dismissed or humiliated by Linda's behavior. He knew this wasn't just about him. Something needed to change. Michael reached for his phone and made a call. "Hi, this is Michael Turner," he said, his voice calm but firm. "I'd like to speak to the regional director of your bank." The bank's headquarters, located in a nearby city, was quick to respond when they realized who Michael was. As a millionaire and a high-profile client, he had a reputation for being both influential and generous. Within an hour, he was connected to a senior executive, Mr. Thompson, who handled high-net-worth accounts. "Mr. Turner," Thompson said over the phone, "I'm so sorry to hear about your experience. Please tell me exactly what happened." Michael explained everything. The condescending tone, the refusal to review his documents, and the way Linda had dismissed him as a scammer. He spoke calmly but made it clear that her actions weren't just disrespectful. They were unacceptable for someone in her position. Thompson listened carefully, growing increasingly concerned as Michael spoke. "This is not how we conduct business," Thompson assured him. "I'll personally look into this matter, and you have my word we'll make things right." While the conversation unfolded, Linda remained unaware of the storm brewing above her. She was in her office, going about her day as usual, greeting some clients with warm smiles, while keeping her guard up with others. Her approach had always been selective, warm and helpful to some, cold and dismissive to others. That afternoon, Linda received an unexpected call from her regional manager. "Linda," the manager said, her tone sharp, "we need to have a serious conversation. There's been a complaint." Linda felt a pang of anxiety. "A complaint? About what?" The manager sighed. "About yesterday. A high-value client was treated unfairly. Headquarters is involved now, and they've asked for a full review of your actions." Linda froze, her confidence shaken. I was just following protocol," she stammered. "You'll need to explain that to the executive team," the manager replied. "And Linda, I suggest you prepare yourself. This is serious." For the first time, Linda felt the weight of her decisions. She had no idea how much trouble she was truly in. Linda Carter sat in her office, her nerves fraying with every passing minute. The call from her regional manager had left her shaken. She replayed the incident with Michael Turner in her mind, trying to justify her actions. "I was just doing my job," she muttered to herself. But deep down, she knew she hadn't treated him fairly. Across town, Michael Turner was meeting with Mr. Thompson, the senior executive from the bank's headquarters. The meeting was held in a private conference room, far from the public eye. Thompson greeted Michael with a firm handshake and an apologetic smile. "Thank you for taking the time to meet with us, Mr. Turner," he said. "We want to address this matter immediately." Michael nodded, his expression calm but serious. "I appreciate you reaching out, but this isn't just about me. This is about how your employees treat people. If this is how I was treated, imagine how many others have faced the same thing without the resources or platform to speak up." Thompson sighed, clearly embarrassed by the situation. "You're absolutely right. We've reviewed the security footage and the reports from the incident. It's clear that Linda Carter acted inappropriately. This is not the standard we uphold as a bank." Michael leaned back in his chair. "What steps are you taking to ensure this doesn't happen again?" Thompson outlined the plan. "First, Linda will face a disciplinary review. Second, we're implementing mandatory sensitivity and diversity training for all employees at her branch, starting with management. Finally, we're committed to restoring your trust, Mr. Turner. We'd like to offer you a direct line to our executive team for any future banking needs." Michael appreciated the gesture but made it clear that he wasn't interested in special treatment. "I'm not looking for favors," he said. "I'm looking for fairness, for everyone." Meanwhile, back at the bank, Linda's day took a turn for the worse. She was called into a video meeting with her regional manager and two executives from headquarters, including Thompson. As the call began, Linda's confidence faltered under their stern gazes. "Linda," the regional manager began, "we've reviewed the incident from yesterday, and we need to hear your explanation." Linda tried to defend herself, saying, "I was just trying to protect the bank. We've had fraud cases before, and I thought—" Thompson interrupted. "You thought wrong. You didn't even review his documents. You dismissed a valued client based on assumptions. That's not just poor judgment, it's unacceptable." Linda's face turned pale. She opened her mouth to argue but realized there was no defense for her actions. The weight of what she had done hit her like a wave. The meeting ended with Linda being placed on immediate suspension pending further review. As she left her office, she felt the stares of her coworkers, some sympathetic, others silently judging. For the first time, Linda felt small in the role she had once commanded with arrogance. Linda Carter left the bank with her head down. She had always been so confident, but now she felt humiliated and unsure of what the future held. The suspension was not just a professional setback. It was a wake-up call. She spent the evening at home replaying the incident in her mind, wondering how she had misjudged the situation so badly. Meanwhile, Michael Turner was not wasting any time. True to his character, he wasn't looking for revenge. Instead, he wanted to use this experience to bring about positive change. He reached out to community leaders, sharing his story to highlight the importance of fair treatment in professional spaces. At the same time, the video of Linda dismissing Michael and calling him a scammer had gone viral. It was being shared widely on social media, and people across the country were discussing it. Many were shocked by Linda's behavior, while others praised Michael for handling the situation with grace. The video had sparked a conversation about unconscious bias and the need for accountability in businesses. The bank's headquarters was also feeling the pressure. The public backlash had grown louder, and customers were questioning their policies. Emails and calls flooded in, with people demanding to know what actions the bank was taking. The CEO, wanting to protect the bank's reputation, called for immediate action. The next day, Linda was asked to attend a mandatory meeting at the headquarters. As she entered the large conference room, she felt overwhelmed. Sitting across from her were senior executives, including Mr. Thompson, and a panel of human resources representatives. Linda knew this wasn't just a discussion, it was an investigation. "Linda," Mr. Thompson began, his tone firm but professional, "we've reviewed your actions, and we've also seen the impact this incident has had on our clients, our employees, and our reputation." Linda nodded, struggling to find the right words. "I realize now that I made a mistake," she said quietly. "I let my assumptions cloud my judgment." Another executive chimed in. "Mistakes can happen, but this was more than that. You showed a lack of professionalism and respect. As a manager, you're held to a higher standard, and you failed to meet it." Linda's heart sank. She had never faced such direct criticism before. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice trembling. "I truly am." The executives exchanged glances. "We appreciate your apology," Mr. Thompson said, "but an apology isn't enough. You're being removed from your managerial role, effective immediately. You will also need to complete additional training before we can determine if there's a place for you at this bank." Linda nodded, tears stinging her eyes. She knew she had no one to blame but herself. As Linda left the meeting, she saw Michael Turner in the lobby. Their eyes met briefly. Michael gave her a small nod, not of approval, but of acknowledgement. Linda realized that this wasn't just about her. It was a chance for her to learn, grow, and change. Linda Carter sat in her small apartment that evening, staring at the blank walls. She had spent the day thinking about the meeting at the bank's headquarters. Losing her position as manager was a blow to her ego, but what hurt the most was realizing how much damage her actions had caused, not just to Michael Turner, but to the reputation of the bank and her own career. She picked up her phone and hesitated before dialing a number. It was her younger sister, Rebecca, who had always been a voice of reason in her life. When Rebecca answered, her tone was warm, but Linda's voice cracked. "I really messed up," she admitted. Rebecca listened patiently as Linda explained what had happened. "Linda," Rebecca said gently, "it's not too late to make things right. This is a chance for you to learn from your mistakes and do better. But you have to take it seriously." Meanwhile, at the bank, Michael Turner was meeting with the CEO and senior executives. They had invited him to help shape the new policies and training programs that would be rolled out to all employees. Michael had been clear from the start. He wasn't looking for personal gain, but for meaningful change. "We need to make sure this doesn't happen again," Michael said. "Your employees need training on how to treat every client with respect, regardless of their background or appearance. People deserve to feel valued when they walk into your bank." The executives nodded in agreement. The CEO spoke up, saying, "We're fully committed to this, Mr. Turner. Your experience has shown us where we've failed, and we're determined to do better." Michael felt a sense of accomplishment. He knew this wouldn't erase what had happened, but it was a step forward. The bank agreed to begin implementing diversity and sensitivity training immediately, starting with Linda's branch. A few days later, Linda received a letter from the bank informing her of her next steps. She would need to complete several training sessions and write a detailed report on what she had learned. If she failed to meet the expectations, she would lose her job permanently. Reluctantly, Linda attended her first training session. At first, she felt defensive, but as the instructor shared stories of bias and discrimination, she began to see herself in those examples. It was uncomfortable, but it also opened her eyes to the impact of her actions. Meanwhile, Michael continued his work in the community. The incident had drawn attention to his project, a community center aimed at providing resources and opportunities for underprivileged neighborhoods. Donations poured in, and the center was on track to open ahead of schedule. One evening, as Linda walked home from her training session, she passed a billboard advertising Michael's community center. She stopped to read it and felt a pang of guilt. She realized that Michael wasn't just a client. He was someone working to make the world better, and she had tried to block his path. Linda resolved to change, not just for her job, but for herself. Weeks passed, and Linda Carter continued her mandatory training sessions. At first, she attended out of obligation, hoping to check off the boxes and get her job back. But as the sessions went on, something inside her began to shift. The stories shared by the instructors, the examples of bias, and the lessons on empathy opened her eyes in ways she hadn't expected. One session focused on personal accountability. The instructor spoke about how small assumptions could lead to larger consequences. We all carry biases, the instructor explained, but it's our responsibility to recognize them and ensure they don't dictate how we treat others. Linda sat quietly, reflecting on her actions. She realized that her assumptions about Michael Turner had blinded her to the truth, that he was a respected professional who had come to the bank with honest intentions. She felt a growing sense of regret, but also a spark of hope. This could be a turning point for her. Meanwhile, Michael Turner's community center was nearing completion. The once abandoned building had been transformed into a bright, welcoming space with classrooms, a library, and a gym. Volunteers from the neighborhood had come together to help, inspired by Michael's vision. The story of his experience at the bank had drawn attention to his work, and people across the city were eager to support him. One day, Linda received a call from her regional manager. "Linda, I'd like to meet with you," the manager said. "I've been following your progress in the training program, and I'd like to hear your thoughts." Linda felt nervous as she walked into the bank's headquarters for the meeting. Sitting across from her manager, she spoke honestly about what she had learned. "I see now how wrong I was," she admitted. "I didn't treat Mr. Turner with the respect he deserved, and I understand the harm that caused, not just to him, but to the bank and to myself." The manager listened carefully and nodded. "Linda, we can't change the past, but we can learn from it. Your willingness to reflect and take responsibility is a step in the right direction. We'll be reviewing your role at the bank, but I hope you continue on this path." As Linda left the meeting, she felt a mix of relief and determination. She knew she had more work to do, but she was ready to prove that she had changed. Later that week, Linda decided to take a bold step. She reached out to Michael Turner through a letter. In it, she wrote, "Mr. Turner, I want to sincerely apologize for how I treated you. I let my biases guide my actions, and I deeply regret the disrespect I showed. I've learned a lot since that day, and I am committed to being better." Michael received the letter and read it thoughtfully. He didn't respond immediately, but he appreciated the gesture. For Michael, the real victory wasn't about an apology. It was about the progress being made, both by Linda and by the bank. As the community center prepared for its grand opening, Michael felt a renewed sense of purpose. His vision for change had gone beyond the center. It was now part of a larger movement for fairness and respect. The grand opening of Michael Turner's community center was finally here. The once abandoned building now stood as a beacon of hope, painted in vibrant colors with its name proudly displayed. The Turner Community Center. Families, children, and community leaders gathered outside, excited to see the new space that would provide resources and opportunities for everyone. Michael stood at the entrance, greeting visitors with his warm smile. He had worked tirelessly to make this dream a reality, and now it was happening. The center was equipped with classrooms for free tutoring, a library for young learners, and a recreation area for sports and activities. It was everything Michael had envisioned and more. As the crowd settled, Michael stepped up to a small stage to give his opening speech. "This center is not just a building," he began. "It's a place where people can come together to learn, grow, and support one another. None of this would have been possible without the kindness and generosity of this community." The crowd erupted in applause, cheering for Michael and his vision. As he stepped down, he spotted someone standing quietly at the back of the crowd. It was Linda Carter. Linda had been unsure about coming to the opening, but she felt it was important to show her support. She had spent the past few weeks reflecting on her actions and learning from her mistakes. She wasn't sure if Michael would want to see her, but she knew she needed to try. As the crowd dispersed to explore the center, Linda approached Michael. He saw her and raised an eyebrow, surprised but not unkind. "Miss Carter," he said calmly, "what brings you here?" Linda took a deep breath. "Mr. Turner, I came to apologize in person. I know I've already sent you a letter, but I wanted to tell you face to face how sorry I am for the way I treated you." Michael looked at her for a moment, then nodded. "I appreciate that," he said. "It takes courage to admit when you're wrong." Linda felt a wave of relief but continued, "I've learned a lot since that day. I know I can't undo what happened, but I'm committed to doing better. I'm also here to support your work, because what you're doing here is truly inspiring." Michael smiled faintly. "Thank you, Miss Carter. The real change comes when people are willing to learn and grow. It sounds like you're on that path." They shook hands, and Linda felt a sense of closure. As she walked through the center, seeing children reading in the library and teenagers laughing in the gym, she realized the impact Michael was making. It wasn't just about the building. It was about the hope and opportunities it brought to people who needed it most. By the end of the day, Linda left the center feeling both humbled and inspired. Michael, on the other hand, stood proudly in the middle of the bustling center, knowing that his calm strength and determination had not only built a community hub, but also changed hearts along the way. The lesson was clear. Respect and kindness could create ripples of change that reached far beyond what anyone could imagine.